David Morgan with Security Dealer Marketing for coming in today to present some information on customizing your website and the importance and some fundamentals to make your website the best it can be and boost traffic to it. And so he'll spend some 30 minutes today to get that together, and I guess he had mentioned too that we'll probably mute everybody shortly and then saving your questions to the end. But most importantly, this webinar is going to be recorded, so we'll be able to post that in our tutorials section on Monitronics.net, so you can access it at any time and go through it at your own pace if you see fit. So that'll be a good help to you as well. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. So I will let you take it away, David. Thank you again.
Well, Renee, thank you very much. I really appreciate you allowing us this opportunity, and we're very, very excited about the relationship that we have and being able to help your dealers with that of the marketing needs. As we all know, marketing is more of that necessary evil. You know, we're all about how can we install the latest and greatest, and how can we really protect that of our customers. And marketing is just, as I mentioned, one of those necessary evils. So today we're going to cover just a small portion of marketing. But we look at it as more of a foundation for that of your marketing, and that is customizing your website to fit your security business needs. And more importantly, how to crack that search engine code and boost traffic to your website locally to generate leads. Because this isn't about a website. This isn't about Google or the search engines. This is all about leads, because leads equals sales, and sales is what makes the world go around in our industry. As Renee mentioned, if you all don't mind, just during, I'm sure that there'll be a few questions that will come up during the presentation. And if you wouldn't mind jotting those down at the end of the presentation, I'll try and get through things as quickly as possible so that we can have a formal Q&A. As Renee mentioned, this session is being recorded. So if you're not able to catch a few things, you'll be able to watch this for future reference. And also at the end of the discussion, I'll have my direct contact information up. So if anyone has any questions for us directly, we can address those as best as possible. So first and foremost, just a little about myself. So this is a picture of me, and I happen to be the co-founder and vice president of sales here at Security Dealer Marketing. A little about myself. I've been in marketing for quite some time, in fact, for over 15 years. It's well before Google was around. Some of the larger nationally named brands that you may be familiar with here that I've done marketing for outside of the security industry are that of ExperienceFreeCreditReport.com, United Online's NetZero, Adidas, ProFlowers, Guthy Ranker, who does Proactive. It's their biggest seller, to name just a few. Our organization really had a paradigm shift in that our agency strictly focuses within the security industry and works with companies such as yourself to really help you make sure that your marketing is being all that it can be. And for example, and I'll jump into this a little more in detail in just a few minutes, but for those of us that work with residential as well as business or commercial customers, the needs of those end users are incredibly different. So we'll dive into that a little more in just a few minutes. Finishing this up, a few of the 6 core services that we offer are brand development being that of like a logo design or collateral development, to that of website design, and this is a very big one, online and offline marketing. So online is going to be search engines, social media, email. Offline will be that of print and that of various types of offline marketing things. And from the print perspective, we can design anything from a business card to that of a billboard, and most things we can get printed ourselves, which is there to work in conjunction with that of the Pro Shop for fully custom type things. Also, we can build an app for you, and then one of the latest things that we just recently launched was that of our lead generation program, which we're not going to be covering today, but these are things that we can all discuss at a later time. So before I jump into the agenda, I wanted to share with you a survey that we came across in Security Sales, which is also Security Sales and Integration magazine. And the survey question is, if I'm being completely honest, our company's marketing is A, non-existent, is severely lacking, could be better, is actually pretty good, or is E, outstanding and it's effective? Well, here's the results. 32, so 1 in 3 said my marketing, and these are companies just like, fellow security businesses just like yourself. 1 in 3 stated that their marketing is completely non-existent. 28% severely lacking, 20% could be better, and between is pretty good and outstanding and effective is only 1 in 5. So 4 out of every 5 security professionals acknowledge they needed help with their marketing. So I want to thank all of you for being a part of today's meeting, and we really look forward to you learning just a few things today. So let's move on to that of the overview. So we're going to be covering 3 things. Why it is that your web presence is so important, and what are your options out there as being an authorized Monitronics dealer. And 2 is more cracking the code to that of the search engines. I'll refer to Google as being that of the new Yellow Pages. I know today we're not covering social media, however, whereas Google is like the Yellow Pages, Facebook is more like the coffee shop. What I mean by Google is that of the new Yellow Pages. Back when Google was in its infancy and before it was around, the way to advertise to potential individuals that were looking for you were, was strictly that of the Yellow Pages. Now, our potential customers have transitioned to the new Yellow Pages, or that of the search engines. So I'll cover a little more in detail as to how paid search will dissect that of a search engine results page. Talk a little about how paid search works and how best to compete. And then also we'll discuss search engine optimization. You all may be familiar with the acronym SEO, or search engine optimization. We'll dig a little deeper into that here in just a few minutes. So before we get into options for your website and how you customize it, or what are the best practices, it's incredibly important to have that good foundation and to understand what is your USP. And the USP can be defined as that of the factor or consideration presented by sellers, the reason that one product or service is different and better than that of the competition, i.e. the nationals. In other words, we as security businesses offer similar type products. What is it that's unique about us versus our competition locally in our area? I use the example of the nationals. I won't name them here, but we all know the usual suspects, right? The $99 guy, the free guy. How is it that we compete with them? And these are really things that we need to think about, not just for your website, but this is what clearly defines our brand. And yes, we may not have the budget of a Coke or a Pepsi, but we need to look at our businesses as being that of a brand. That's one of the great benefits to being a Monitronics dealer. You can be your own man, whether you wish to represent your own brand, whether it's a combination of Monitronics and yourself, or strictly Monitronics. So it is incredibly important that your website and all of your collateral, as well as your staff, is not only saying the same thing, but with your collateral, it looks the same and it says the same thing of that of your website. I don't know, I've many times I've reached out to large businesses, and I've reached out to their customer service because I needed some help with something for myself personally. And I've called, I've asked a representative a certain question, they've given me one response, and I call back a few minutes later and I get a completely different response. Well, that's a big no-no. It's very, very important that all of our staff is in unison, and we're all clearly communicating the same message. So now moving on to the foundation. Our website is the foundation. It's more of the ground zero. Everything that we do in our marketing, whether it's referrals, whether it's that of, maybe you're working with the local chambers of commerce, you are having your business cards being sent all over, you have brochures, you're doing door knocking, you're doing various types of marketing things, you're doing search engine marketing. All of the call to actions, everything leads to your website. And that's why it's incredibly important for you to, first and foremost, have a web presence. But equally as important, you've got to make sure that it's clearly communicating what it is that you do. and I'll get into a little more detail to that in just a moment. Now, the one thing I want to really point out here is the basis of our industry is on referrals. Referrals is the best form of marketing. Now, there's been a very interesting paradigm shift over the last few years, and this is with the advent of websites and with Google. When we're think of it, look at it from our perspective. Whenever we get referred to maybe a new restaurant or to a new attorney or whatever the case may be, before we actually physically will reach out to them, do we notice that we tend to go to Google, type in the name of the business, and research to see as to what Google's saying about them, number one. Number two, what is their website saying about themselves? And if their website isn't professional, and if it clearly doesn't explain what it is that they do, and that corresponds with exactly what you need, are you turned off? Is that something that you may not actually reach out to them after all because you feel as though they can't help you? Well, transition that to the topic at hand. Our customers are in exactly the same boat. So once again, thank you very much for spending time with us today. Let's talk a little about best practices, or what are the components to make sure that you've got a successful website. And I'm just going to cover a few of the high-level things. But as I was alluding towards just a minute ago, it's very important to have a professional, clean design. Let me just make sure that. Sorry about that. Okay, we got that fixed. So it's incredibly important to make sure that you've got a professional, clean design. Equally, it is very, very important. How many times have you or I went to a website and you're looking for something and it's been very challenging to find it? So that's where having a plan in play to make sure you have that right structure so that it's easy to find what you're looking for. And I'll show you 3 examples here in just a couple of minutes as to what I'm referring to. Also, I know majority of us strictly do residential, but there are some of us that provide business security as well. And it is incredibly important to make sure that when you're on residential pages, you have a resident. I'll share with you an example, and I'll actually visually show you in just a couple of minutes. But even though, let's say, for example, the security equipment that we're using for residential versus that of a small business, even if the equipment is the same or very similar, the small business owner wants to know that you specialize in what they do versus receiving equipment that's geared towards residential. So it's incredibly important to make sure that you have different components, and this goes across all of your marketing, but today, of course, we're focusing on website. Now, within call to actions, what I mean by call to actions is you've got to make sure that you have your phone number prominently positioned on every single page of your website. You've got to make sure that throughout all the inner pages, you've got quick and easy to fill out custom contact us forms, newsletter signups, various special offers. The whole point is we want to make sure that your customers are being able to engage and take action with you. And also, one of the great benefits of being a Monitronics authorized dealer is the relationships with all of the leading manufacturers, i.e., 2GIG, Alarm.com, Honeywell, GE, Interlogics, just to name a few. And a lot of these, like for example, if we're using, let's say, 2GIG and Alarm.com, or maybe Honeywell Total Connect as an example, there's a lot of collateral that we can incorporate into our website. And as I mentioned, I'll be a little more specific about that when I show you that in just a couple of minutes. But it's incredibly important for us to not reinvent the wheel. We've got to, use others so that we're able to move forward, and we can just put our best foot moving forward in all of our marketing collateral. And just lastly, a couple of quick things is reliability and credibility factors. Now, we've all here partnered with Monitronics. Monitronics has been in the SDM Top 100 for quite some time. They're UL certified, 5 Diamond. These are all, and I know as I've taken a look at a lot of the websites, a lot of them are establishing, and they have a lot of those credibility factors. But we've got to use all of our partners and insert and integrate them within our collateral to help build and establish our credibility. And then lastly is search engine friendly. Search engines and website, search engines are incredibly important, as I'd mentioned a little earlier, and we'll dig into a little more deep as to why that's important here in just a moment. But let's just quickly discuss that of the options. Now, of course, a fourth option would be that of a local web designer. However, there are special incentives for you as a Monitronics dealer, and that you've got specials specifically from that of Monitronics. Monitronics has established a partnership with GoDaddy, and they've actually they've created a and I'm not sure as to whether everyone's familiar with this, but I'll show you this in just a moment. Monitronics has created a template that you can use in GoDaddy so that you can be up and running within as little as a couple of weeks at a very, very low cost. Also, ourselves, we've got two options, whether it's a semi-custom website with 3 professional design options, or also there is a custom unique look and feel option as well, which I'll cover here in just a moment. So option number 1 is that of the Monitronics template, with a few of the features including the design is already up in place, so you don't necessarily need to design it. It includes up to 5 pages. The structure, the starter copy, and the images are all included. And really quickly, let me just show you a live example as to how this, and I won't spend too much time on these. I just wanted to show you outside of the actual slides as to how this looks and what your options are as to what potentially a final website could potentially look like for you. And then we go into why us. I mentioned a little earlier about the reliability and credibility factors. And then call to actions. You'll see that phone number here is and get a free quote. All right. So jumping back into another option, which is the security dealer marketing option, is going to be that of a semi-custom look and feel. And this is an example of a semi-custom feel. And a few of the features are, being that we're a partner of Monitronics, we understand what all the Moni dealer brand standards are. This will come included with up to 7 web pages. There's 3 designs to choose from. The home page itself will have that of an animation. The inner pages will have unique banner headers. The copy will come included, and it's very easy for it to be customized. There's online reporting that comes along with this. All of the images are included. There's also, and I'll show you this in just a moment, this is very, very interesting, and I'll share with you a story as to how this is used, but crime map installation on your website, because it's incredibly important to keep people on your website versus leaving. And then also, the website itself is mobile device compatible. Let me just show you a quick little example of the semi-custom as well. So I mentioned Flash, I'm sorry, not Flash, but an animated banner here on the home page. And as we go to that of the inner pages, i.e. the commercial, you'll see that there's custom copy, there's different images. I mentioned earlier, when in the event that you do residential and you do commercial, it's incredibly important to make sure that the copy is geared towards that end user so that that end user feels as though you are truly the expert in what it is that they do. I shared with you as well a crime map. What we did with Alltech, who's a fellow Monitronics dealer based here in Southern California, we installed an actual crime map on their site. Now, I physically happen to be based in Southern California. Our corporate offices are in Covina, so it's showing me crime locally in my area, and these are all things that come standard with all of the websites that we integrate. And let's just quickly jump back here, and I will jump into the third option here, which is that of the custom. Bear with me for just a moment here. Appreciate everyone's patience while I have a little bit of technical difficulties, but we will be good here in just a moment. Okay. So the third option, of course, is that of a custom website design. I'll show you. I'll just go through this very quickly, and I prefer to actually show you what I'm referring to. But there's a custom, unique security design. There's up to 10 pages, and the actual copy itself is custom. So really quickly, let me just jump into there. And this is an example of one of the top Monitronics dealers that's based in Central Valley here in California, Lifeline. And this is an example of their present site. They happen to have multi-locations. So these are all the things that are included. You'll notice they happen to be very, very big with GE Interlogics. I mean, they for all intents and purposes, carry GE Interlogics and Alarm.com. And you'll notice a great amount of integration of this, but it's still Lifeline's brand. So there's a great way to be able to really hold your brand in place, yet incorporate what Alarm.com provides us, as well as what GE provides us with their panels. So let me just see as to whether I need to, okay. So, and then also, taking a look at that of the crime map, they also happen to have the crime map integrated on their site. Okay, so enough of the show and tell. Let me get back to the actual main presentation. And now that we've spent a little bit of time on that of website, let's dig into what I'd mentioned a little earlier and transition to that of the search engines, why they're incredibly important. I get questions all the time as to, what are the best practices? Why is it that all of these dealers are showing up at the top of the results, and how do I get into these particular results? And we'll dig into all those a little more deeply here in just a moment. But just taking a little bit of an overview, I mean, I think we all know that Google is a location where we ourselves and our users search for services. And as a matter of fact, there has been a paradigm shift. And as of January this year, there were over, to be honest, this number is almost too big to comprehend, but there are 18 billion total searches across all the major search engines. And Google has stated that of all of the searches, about 1 in 5 have local intent. So that means about 3.6 billion local searches happen per month. Of course, we're only interested in the local searches that are geared towards security and that are geared towards and that happen within our service area. Now, I mentioned that paradigm shift, whereas 5-10 years ago, we used the internet to buy things on maybe like an Amazon or an eBay, but these days, as I alluded towards earlier, we research online before we buy offline. And in fact, so nearly 9 in 10 potential customers research online before they buy offline. And security systems as a phrase, was typed in Google, according to Google, over 600,000 times last month. So are the search engines important? Absolutely, they're very, very important. So let's take a look at an eye tracking study. So this is an example of a heat map. And I know this is logical because we're all trained at a very young age. When we open up a book, we start up at the top from the left and we work our way down from the left to right. And you'll notice here in this area, in this triangular area, this eye tracking study, which was tracking the eye movement of just over 1,000 users, and where the clicks were occurring, which is where all these X's are, and the mouse movements, you'll notice that most of the activity is happening here on the top and on the left-hand side. And as you go lower and lower on the page and on the peripheral, lower and lower, there's less and less activity. So what is this telling us? This is telling us if you want to generate the most amount of traction on the search engines, it's incredibly important to rank on page 1 first and foremost. And the higher up on the page that you can get, the better, because that's where you'll get the majority of your traction and visibility. it's from the search engine perspective, it's all about getting traffic, and traffic is going to go to your website, which will generate leads, and leads equal sales. So moving on, let's dissect an actual Google search results page. And taking a look here on the top and the right-hand side, these are all ads, and I'll dig into a little more deeply here in just a moment as to how you get into these areas and what are the costs associated and all that good stuff. So we may have heard the phrase Google AdWords or PPC or pay-per-click or SEM for search engine marketing. That is what the listings that are on the top and the right-hand side are referring to. And then when we get to more of the middle or the main area, you'll see here for this particular search, there's about 1.9, so just under 2 million results, and that is reflective of these results and what's below the fold. So in this area, you may have noticed the maps with the letters or the numbers. That's, in the past, was referred to as Google Maps or Google Places. Over the last couple of months, Google has transitioned that to Google Plus local pages. And we'll cover that just a little more in detail here in just a moment. The natural or the organic results are the main results. And the maps / the organic, when someone clicks on your ad in this area, and your listing here, I should rather say, there is no additional cost, so that is free. When someone clicks on you here on the top or the right-hand side, there is a cost per click or cost per visit that's associated with that. So let's dig in a little more deeply into that of paid search and how it works. So as I'd mentioned here in this area, these listings are on more of an auction basis. So that means, for the phrase that I used here, Memphis security companies, these particular companies are bidding under this particular phrase to show up in these results. And what's happening is you're only going to be paying Google a fee only when 3 steps occur. And that's when you go to your favorite search engine, you do a search for the service that you're looking for, and that happens to correspond with exactly what you do, meaning you the local security dealer. And more importantly, Google allows us to set up within our account that of you're able to set up geographic parameters, meaning, let's say, for example, someone is based in Dallas, Texas, and I do the DFW metropolitan area. So we can set up our Google paid search account so that you're only showing up within that radius, within that circle, or within that service area. But the last step here is, as someone is reviewing, so they've gotten out of their comfort zone, they went to a search engine, they type in this phrase, it corresponds with exactly what you do, and they review through all the listings, and they say, aha, that's what I'm looking for. Only upon that time is when it is that you're charged a cost per click or a cost per visit. Now, if any of you have researched this in the past, you'll know, one of the challenges is that our industry, the keywords themselves are very, very expensive. Dependent upon whether you do strictly residential, whether you're using general words, whether you're using very specific targeted words, in order to be in the top of the results, you can be paying anywhere from $3 to $4 to an excess to $14, $15, $20. And there are a few words that are even higher than that. So as far as the best practices, it is incredibly important for you to have a plan in play before you get started, because in this particular case, what you don't know can hurt you very, very quickly. Also, if you're taking into consideration and taking a step back, what's in it for? So remember, Google is a publicly traded company. They generate all of their money, all of their revenue comes from these boxes here. And the reason why they're able to generate a tremendous amount of money is because this works. Think about this. I'm sharing with you these ungodly numbers to get one visit to your site. But why would security companies pay for that and bid up prices that high if it didn't work. It works. So Google is all about the end user being able to be trained to find what they're looking for, so they come back and they click on more and more and more ads. So how do we leverage that? Well, a couple of ways. Our text-based ads have got to be incredibly relevant. It is not, jumping back here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This ADT business is not paying, as an example, and I'm making these numbers up, but they're not bidding $10, $9, $8, $7, and so on and so forth. There is a secret sauce. The technical term is an algorithm as to how these results are displaying in a particular order. Now, a couple of the major components happen to be that of, number one, what is it that these individuals are bidding? Number one. Number two is, what is the relevance? And what I mean by the relevance is, it's two things. It's what does the text ad say, meaning what does the text here say? And also, as you click through, what is it, the page on your website that you're sending them to, does it correspond with exactly what the user is looking for? So those are incredibly different things, and I can be a lot more detailed with you on a one-on-one basis. But in a general sense, it's incredibly important to have a plan to make sure that you're making the proper bids. Your budget is not unlimited, because you can go through a lot of dollars very, very quickly. And then lastly, you're being as relevant with your text ads and that of the pages that you're driving the users to. So now let's transition to that of the free area. Once again, SEO, or search engine optimization, which is this area here, which is the main area where there's nearly 2 million results for that particular phrase. And I have a visual diagram here, but there are three major components. So first of all, search engine optimization can be defined as making changes to your website and the practices that you do in order to increase your rankings across the words and phrases that are important to your security business. So how does it work, and how do we, so we build our website, and how do we get into the results? So back when I first got started, I mentioned to you in the beginning of the discussion, I've been in marketing for over 15 years, since before Google was around, and this is back when there were hundreds of thousands of websites out there. Whereas now, there are, B as in boy, billions upon billions, and there's a tremendous amount of web pages that are coming on a daily basis. So if you're competing with a couple 100,000 versus billions upon billions, would we all probably agree with it's a lot easier to compete with hundreds of thousands versus billions? Absolutely, yes. So in the good old days, it was all about just being able to do certain things to trick the search engines. Well, that doesn't work anymore. Now how it works in order for you to be able to have a chance at showing up at the top of results are the following three. First and foremost, you've got to have your plan. You've got to know which are the words and phrases that your potential customers are searching for. Remember, take into consideration, maybe you happen to be a dealer that is based in Miami, Florida, and I'm based in Los Angeles. And what happens if I'm in Los Angeles and I do a search for home security systems, and your result is showing up at the top, and I go to your website and I generate into a lead? Well, guess what? That's going to mean virtually nothing to you. However, you of course can, being the nice, friendly Monitronics dealer, you can TO that to one of your fellow dealers. But frankly, my point is, you've got to know what are the right words. You've got to make sure that you have your service area incorporated into that, first and foremost. Number two has to do with the content or the text within your area. Like, as an example, let me just quickly jump back here. We ourselves, as we are reviewing a website, we view the website visually. We see the nice pictures, we see the text, we see all this information, whereas search engines, they view a website like this. You know, this looks like more of the Matrix, right? It's like, to most of us, it's like, what does all that stuff mean? My point is, if you take a look at this more closely, you know, this is all text. There's various portions of text here. And jumping back here, on your website, there are certain text-based areas that are more important than others. And outside of the senior management within that of the engineering department at Google, there is a lot of there isn't anyone outside of that knows all of the ingredients to Google's secret sauce as to why it is that one shows up versus the other. However, you know, we have a very good understanding, because we've been doing this for quite some time, as to what the major ingredients are. And as far as the major ingredients, they're involving making sure that you have the right words in the right places, number one. Also, there are special guides that are referred to as like an XML sitemap. For lack of a better term, that's a more generalized term for that is, there are certain guides that you can send to Google and the search engine publishers to state, these are all the pages of my site, and please index me. Doing that is incredibly important. But outside of this, I'll share with you, and this is a rhetorical question because I've got everyone on mute, but if I were to call everyone, if I were to call any of you out of the blue, you know, maybe I'm a nice guy and I somehow get your attention and I say, you know what, hi, I'm Dave with Security Dealer Marketing, and we've got this great program, and, you know, we can get you to the top of the search engines. You know, you may give me the time of day and you may listen to what I have to say and all that good stuff. But on the other hand, if Morgan or if Stacy or if Renee, on the other hand, reach out to you and say, hey, you know what, guys, you know, these guys at Security Dealer Marketing, they've been doing some great work for other fellow Monitronics dealers. I think you may want to reach out to them because they can help you with this or this or this or this. You know, what of those two scenarios would be more powerful? Of course, the referral is going to be more powerful. And the search engines, they work exactly the same way. Because of the fact that there are billions upon billions of web pages out there, having all the right content in all the right places, sending all the right guides, updating your content, all of that, you know, all of that is not good enough anymore. Now it's all about, in Google's eyes, having other credible third-party sources validate you. And I don't like to use the, well, you know, for lack of a better analogy, it's more of like a popularity contest. And frankly, as you have the right content, the right relevant content, along with being validated by that of Google and the other search engines, that's the right combination to put yourself in the best possible chance to show up higher in the search engine rankings. There are a few things that come into play, and these days social bookmarking and social media is starting to become more and more of an important factor. But you know, working with third parties to link to you, and by the way, not all links are created equal. You know, having press releases. So like, for example, especially for those of us that do residential as well as business or commercial, you know, maybe, whereas we're not going to publish exactly what we did for a local, let's say, for example, we did work for, you know, one of the big pillars locally in our area. Well, that's a great credibility establisher. And we create a quick press release and we distribute that, and there are links in that go back to our website. Well, those are great links that will help us. And they also will help to establish credibility to the fact that, hey, I want to work with the company that did the City Hall. I want to work with a company that did, you know, the big, you know, the big local pillars, the big local businesses that I associate, and that, you know, if it works for them, it works for me. So, you know, moving on really quickly with the local maps / Google Plus / places, and I have all of these because presently they are referred to as Google Plus local pages, which is this area here. I'm going to just quickly talk about best practices. And just so you know, when I say truly free, I don't have the number in front of me, but it is a ridiculous number. When you take a look at all of the small businesses, or just the businesses for that matter, that have not claimed your listing. This is a tip, and I definitely want everyone to jot this down. If at the very least, if you don't do anything else as a result of today's meeting, I would like for you to claim your listing on Google+. Make sure that your profile is complete, and any inaccuracies, make sure that you complete those. These are things, of course, that we can help with, but these are all things at the very least that you can get things done yourself. As far as how you show up in the results, they're based on relevancy. You've got to have a complete profile. You've got to make sure that you have images and things in that respect that are added to that. You can even add your hours of business. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's a free web page that Google provides you with that has good rankings. So when I say citations, like that of the search engine optimization that I shared a couple minutes ago, you want to have external third-party sites that are validating your listings. I.e., Info USA, Yellow Pages, 411 Info, etc. The other thing is you're in a position to have reviews from a lot of your happy customers listed within that of the Google Plus local pages. And a couple of the ways to get individuals, your customers, to actually do that is to create a quick email campaign to remind them to ask them, to have them literally click on a link and to be able to provide you with that of a review on that of your site, your Google Plus pages. So really quickly, I know I covered a lot today, and I really appreciate everyone's attentiveness. And just a quick little review of what it is that we talked about. We talked about, first and foremost, before we get to the website, you've got to have a good understanding as to knowing what your USP is. And for, remember, if we're competing with all the others, including that of the nationals, making sure that you're really hitting home on the fact that you're local, local sales and install, and all that good stuff. We talked about what the website being that of the foundation for that of your 2012 marketing, and everything leads to your website. We'd also talked about the new Yellow Pages, which is Google and the other search engines. We quickly touched on that of pay-per-click. We talked on search engine optimization. We also covered that of the local maps, which is now Google Plus Local. So now I'm going to unmute everyone, and anyone that has questions. I'm sorry, did someone have a question? And actually, why don't I start off a question first of all? There was a fellow dealer that wasn't able to make today's call, and he'd asked me, he said that he'd be able to catch up on this after the call, and asked me, when you take a look at pay-per-click versus that of SEO, which one is better? And, the long and the short of it is, ideally, if you're in a position to have not just SEO and pay-per-click, but also that Google+, if you can be, let's think about this, right? If you can cost-effectively be on page 1 in 3 locations, well, what is that potential customer going to think of you? They're going to say, oh, my goodness, Google has them listed on the page 3 times. They must be a good company. Remember, it's all about perception. Now, as far as whether PPC or pay-per-click or SEO is better, they're both completely different animals. As an example, with pay-per-click, you can be up and running very, very quickly. Literally, you can have your account up and running in 10, 15, 20 minutes. Whereas SEO is something of more of a long-term proposition. Typically, the results that we see, in order for you to start to see your rankings increase, be as long as 2 to 3 months to start to see rankings. But it's something that is meant to really hold true for that of the long term and the long run. but ideally you want to be in both areas. And you want to have a plan, especially for pay-per-click, because of the actual average, what Google is recommending for you to bid to be in the top of the results. Anyone else have any other questions? Well, I really, once again, I really appreciate everyone's time today. I don't know, Renee, if you had any closing thoughts or what have you. Actually, before that, you'll all notice now I transitioned the screen to have my direct contact information. So feel free to jot this down, and if there's any things that you'd like to discuss offline, I'm happy to discuss this with you directly. Once again, I really appreciate everyone's time today. I know everyone's incredibly busy, and as I mentioned, marketing, it's that necessary evil, that thing that's got to be done. So with that said, Renee, I don't know if you had any closing thoughts.
Thank you so much, David. No, really appreciate your time today. I thought it was very thorough and helpful. And once again, everyone will post this in the tutorial section, so you'll be able to access it any time. And if you ever need additional information outside of today's, we can help point you in the right direction to security dealer marketing here at Monitronics.
Okay,
thank you, David.
Right.
Thank you very much. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You too.
Bye.